Hello and welcome to this video from capabilityassessments.com. In this video we'll go through how to use the site, and that'll be in four broad stages. Firstly, to confirm some details about your organisation. Secondly, to complete a self-assessment or response as it's termed in the system. Thirdly, to look at the report from that self-assessment. And finally, an optional stage of ordering a validation visit. So we start things off on the assessments page, which is the main page of the site, and it's where you'll be directed when you first log in. It's from this page that all of the functionality that we're going to use in this video will be accessed from, but at the moment the first thing to do is to confirm some details of your organisation, and that's why your response is not yet available, the report is still pending. So what we do need to do is click on the confirm button. So this page is just some information we'd like to capture about your organisation. None of this information is mandatory to fill out. You can leave this page completely blank and still use the rest of the site. But the reason we direct you to it at the start is because it's also where you choose who you're going to share the results of your self-assessment with. So I'll just quickly go through the first section of the page, which is just information. So it's the sector that your business operates in. You can choose more than one there, as many as is appropriate. The number of employees, which is a banded list, annual turnover, similar, and then the primes that sponsor the site at the moment that you supply. You can tick one or both, or however many there are when you see the site. You can tick as many as is appropriate. And then the turnover, the percentage of your turnover, which is with the primes that you supply, and that's again a list of percentages to choose from. And then finally on this page, perhaps the more important fields is who you're going to share the details of what you then do on the site, the details of your self-assessment that we'll see in a little while with. There's two levels of sharing. Share status with is where you choose to just simply let them know that you have logged into the site and that you have completed, when you have completed it, a self-assessment. Share details with actually shares the full details of your self-assessment with those companies, so they would be able to also log into the site and see when it's completed the information that you put into the site as part of your self-assessment. As I said, none of this is mandatory, so if you simply left all these boxes unticked, you could use the site as you want and nobody but yourself would be privy to the details of your self-assessment. So for now I'll choose to share my status and details with everyone, and the next thing to do is save the page. You can save it with none of the fields filled in, and we get a confirmation that we've confirmed the details. And then the two things we can do is go back to the assessments page that we saw previously, or we can begin our response, the self-assessment. So I'll choose to begin the response. And so now we're taken to the self-assessment itself, which is the main part of the site. At the top here in the brown section, this is details of how to use the self-assessment, and that appears on the first page. There are 8 pages to the self-assessment. You'll be able to come back and read that whenever you use the site. The main section of the self-assessment are the 8 sections, the first one of which is awareness, and then the criteria within each one of those sections. On the left there's information about what that is, why you might be interested in that, its importance for collaborative working. This section in the middle is where you begin to say what you consider to be your company's current position on this criteria, and there's, as you can see, there's information appearing underneath the slider bar which helps position your organisation, and then appearing in the box above is more information, giving more perspective on that criteria, and also what might be considered evidence to demonstrate that, which is going to be more useful if you progress on to the validation visit, which we'll come to. Each one of the sections, this is the first section, has about 8 or 10 criteria. You can scroll down and they all work in a broadly similar fashion, and you can also and probably should also start to record in the rationale field to the right on against each section more details about your position, and you can also start to give details of the way you might evidence that if anybody was going to look into your self-assessment in the future. So that's one section. That's page 1 of 8. The way you navigate around the questionnaire is to use the buttons which are up in the top right of the page and which stay in the top right even as you scroll down. They're fairly self-explanatory what they do. For now I'm going to click next, which takes you to the next page of the questionnaire, and you'll notice as we went forwards then it saves our progress on the previous page when I click next. So if I were to go away now, close this window, I'd still have saved what I did on page 1, and in that manner you can then progress through the 8 pages of the questionnaire. You can see at the top of the page now, because I've progressed beyond page 2 and then come back to it, it's started to highlight on this page the questions that I did not complete the first time through. Now again, like the form that we were looking on earlier, none of these criteria are mandatory. This is a self-assessment. It's there for your own information, but we do highlight to you which ones you have and haven't completed just as an aid, and so that's why they're now highlighted in blue, and also there's a message at the top of the screen telling me that we have some incomplete fields on pages 1 and 3. I'll continue. I'll progress back to page 3, similarly highlighted. Now, at any point, there's quite a long questionnaire. It's perfectly possible to save your progress, log out of the system, and then return to it. So we'll just look at how you might do that. So, as you might expect, you'd click the Save button at the top right of the page. What we're asked is whether we want to submit this, and if we were to submit it, we'd see the report, but that's not what we want to do. I could just save my progress and continue editing, but for now I'll go back to the assessments page, and at this point I can close the window, I can log out and come back at a later date. And if I then did come back at a later date and logged into the site, then I would go straight to the assessments page, and this is how I'd see it. So we can see now I've confirmed the organisation details. I've not completed my response, my self-assessment, but it's in progress. And the report, that's why the report is still pending, because I've not submitted it. And then what we'll come on to later, the validation visit, I could start to order it. But for now I'm going to go back to the self-assessment and complete it. So I've clicked on edit. Now it's remembered that last time I was on the self-assessment I'd got up to page 3, so it's taken me straight back to page 3, and at this point I can continue to edit the questionnaire as before and type my rationale and so on. Now if I did at this point decide that I did want to see the report, then I could click save, and as before we get the same dialog box, but for now I'm going to say that I do want to submit it, so I'm going to click submit. But as you can see, we do, although none of the criteria are mandatory for you to complete, we do give you an alert basically that says, well, you've not actually looked at all of the pages of the questionnaire yet, so to see the report you do at least need to progress through to page 8. So I'll say OK to that, and then I'll just, for the purposes of this video, I'll just go straight through to page 8. And as I said, you would be completing these if you were to actually be doing the self-assessment and be trying to get a meaningful report. So now I've got through to page 8. Again, this is the final section. It's completed as before, but this time I'm going to save it, and I will also submit it as if I'd completed the whole questionnaire, so we can see the report. So this time I'll say submit, and we don't get the dialog box warning us because we've seen all of the pages, and at this point that's done, submitted. So again, I can go back and have a look at what I just did, or I can go back to the assessments page, which is what I'll do. And now you can see again the status has been updated. I've still confirmed my organisation details. Now I've completed my response, my self-assessment. I can go back in and view it, but now at this point the report is available. So that's the third stage, and it's to look at the report. So I'll do that by clicking on view, and this is the report. It's as you just click on it, you see the report in a web page. There's an overall summary of your assessment, and then as you can see as we scroll down, there's information gathered from the scores that were filled in. Because I completed awareness, I've got a score, and so on. Obviously, when the whole assessment is complete, then you get scores for each of the sections. There's next steps outlined for you, and then a few appendices on collaboration generally, and then finally a detailed summary of your entire self-assessment, what you scored, what level that is, and then the rationale or evidence that you yourself added. And then it's also possible to download the report as a PDF, which is the same information but in a document which you can then save yourself, distribute to whoever you like, or just simply save to a local machine. So I'll return back to assessments, and that is the simple process of completing a self-assessment, and that's what the basic level of access to the site gets you. Now at this point, an optional step is to order a validation visit, so I'm just going to quickly go through that for you as well, but at this point it's not mandatory. So as you might expect, to start that I'll click the order button. And at this point you'll go into the sign up stages that you will have seen when you first signed up to the site, and you'll be asked to pay again. And here we are at the page which tells me that my order is complete after making a credit card payment. As we can see, it tells me that my upgrade has been ordered, and it just gives me a brief description of what I can now do, because I've ordered a validation visit, and that's that on the assessments page I actually have the ability to ask somebody to come and visit me. So I'll go back to the assessments page, and again we can see we still have a completed response. I can still go and view my report, but now the next stage is that I can request a visit from somebody, so I'll click that button. And the dialogue that comes up at this point just summarises what scores I've completed on my self-assessment. Now what will happen if I requested the validation visit is that self-assessment would go off to the validator, and that they'd be able to use that on the day when they come out to see you. Now this is saying that I've completed 5 fields out of 78, and it gives you the option to reopen that response and add more detail to it. Basically, if you decided that because you are going to pay for somebody to come out, you'd like to give them more information up front than you yourself filled in, just to make things go more smoothly on the day. So for now I'll just choose to reopen the response so we can see what happens then. And as you can see, we've still not requested our validation visit because we've not formally asked for anybody to come out yet. The report is back to pending because my response is now open again, and I'm free to go in and edit it and add more information. So I'll just click the edit button, and we see this is the response I filled out earlier, the responses I gave earlier, but I've the opportunity to add more information just as before. So now I'll pretend that I've added the more information that I want to give to the assessor, and I'll save it again. Again, the save dialog box comes up. I'll submit it again as we did before, and I'll go back to the assessments page. And now we're back as things were when I originally ordered the validation, and this time when I click request visit, I'm not going to reopen the response because I've added the extra information. I'm actually going to click request validation visit, and at that point we see that the validation is in progress, and as it was explained when you first ordered it, your details will be sent to the external validator, and he will be in touch outside of the site to come round and see you. So thanks for watching this video. That should take you through the functionality on capabilityassessments.com. If you have any questions, then feel free to watch this video again, or you can get in touch with us at support@capabilityassessments.com. Thanks.